Hi, I'm Larry Puckett, the DCC Guy. Today we're going to be installing more of the Walthers foam roadbed here on the modules. And right off, the big difference is I'm going to be installing it on this sweeping curve here. So we'll get an answer to that question of how well does it take a curve. So let's get started with the video. Hit that little red subscribe button, and when the little bell comes up, click on it and click all. As a follow-up to last week's video on circuit breakers, I wanted to share with you a comment that I got from one of the viewers here. And he said that he had gotten distracted while working with his model railroad and had not noticed that he had a short, that his Zephyr system was shorted out. So he did not know it was doing that, and after a while he noticed the smell of burning plastic, or at least melting plastic. So he started looking around and found that smoke was coming out of his Zephyr DCC system. Well, he shut it off, but it was too late. It had already burned itself up. So be aware, a circuit breaker would have protected that DCC Zephyr system, and it can protect your DCC system as well. So take heed from that experience that he shared with us. These things will burn up if you do not remove a short in a reasonable amount of time. And NCE says that's 3 to 4 minutes with their boosters. Another thing I wanted to point out is that a couple of viewers were confused because I kept talking about attaching the circuit breaker between your boosters and your DCC power bus. And I was pointing, I guess, at a command station. Well, apparently a lot of viewers are not aware that most command stations nowadays have both the command station circuitry in them as well as a booster. This DCS 210 is rated for a 5 amp or an 8 amp output. So it's got a booster in here that will put out 5 to 8 amps. So be aware that with command stations, most of them are a command station booster combo. Back in the early days of DCC, there were manufacturers who made separate command stations, and that's all they were. And you had to have a separate booster to go with them. However, predominantly now, most manufacturers include a booster in with the command station itself. So when I talk about attaching anything to a booster, I'm talking about standalone boosters, and I'm talking about combo command station boosters. So be aware of that. Okay, let's get on with the video. Now, for those of you that have been following this series of videos on building the corner module, you'll remember I got the modules finished, I got the DCC system installed, and finally, I got the foam installed afterwards. So that's something that I did since our last video. I went ahead and installed the foam, and I've covered that in many videos in the past, so you can take a look back at those. It's the same process. I did have to use some pink foam because I ran out of my green and I had some pink on hand. So I went ahead and used that. It's going to be covered with scenery anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Right away, I want to bring you in here closer so you can take a look at what I'm doing in order to prepare the foam roadbed for installation here on the layout. So let's come on in close. Okay, I cut the top of my head off, but I wanted you to see what I'm doing here, because what I've done is I drew a line down the center of the piece of foam roadbed. And then I just used a very sharp new blade in my utility knife, and I'll finish cutting this out down to here. And all you have to do is just follow your line, and it cuts very easily. No problem at all splitting that, as you can see. So that's going to allow me to adjust the curve as we go around here. So there's not going to be any problem with installing this. Hopefully the folks at Walthers have talked to the manufacturer in China for this product and have asked them to add score lines. My contact at Walthers said that they had thought about doing that, so I don't know how much progress they've made. But I'll check with him and see if he can tell me. Okay, so the first thing, right here at the connection between these two modules, you'll note there was just a hair's difference in the height of the roadbed on each side of the gap. So what I've done here is I've taken a couple of pieces of thin cardboard. I've cut it down a bit and sloped it so that I can install these, and that gives us a match. Once it's all glued in place, it's going to allow these to just meet up perfectly. And you can see back here in the background, I've already put one in place with some adhesive. So that's going to give us a good match there. And it's something to be expected when you're joining up modules. They sometimes come out with a slightly different height, particularly when you've got two different brands of foam, because they say they're both a 1/2 inch. Don't believe it. They're not. Before we can begin installing the road bed on the curve, we have to have the straight because it runs off of it. So let's go ahead and get these pieces done in here. I'm just going to lay out a bead of my liquid nails for projects that I'm still using. And yes, I'm still using foam here on the model railroad because no matter what you do, there's going to be flammable materials. And the scenery materials we use are much more flammable than the foam, to be honest with you. I checked the ignition temperatures for each, and all of the stuff we use for scenery is a lot more flammable. So I'm less worried about foam than I am about all the other stuff on the layout. And now, like I said, I've got these to put in place here to act as spacers to get the everything leveled out. Okay, so there we go. Get that set in, very good. And let's see. There. And I've got my pins ready to stick it down with. Now, one of the good things about cardboard like this, it's corrugated, so if you need to adjust the height in it, you can just press it down, and it's going to collapse a little bit for you. Makes it easier to adjust that height. Okay, so that's done. Let's go ahead and we'll get the adhesive applied here. Got everything set up. You'll notice I put down a line on either side of the center line. That's so I know exactly where to get my my bead of adhesive. So let's go ahead and just run a bead down the center line here. And by the way, these things are working just great. I have not had to throw away a tube since I started using them. Okay, now we'll just smooth out our line of adhesive. Okay, so we got that down. Now, let's lay the road bed in place. And I'm using the outlines of the marks that I put on either side to get it straight. And then I'll sight down just to make sure, and it's perfectly straight. Okay, now once again, I've got my roller. And again, this you can pick up at craft shops. It's made for applying ink when you're printing, doing prints, okay? So, and it's a great way to get a good, even bond. Okay, so get that done. And then I'm going to apply a bunch of these guys. Now there's other tracks that are going to be installed in here. We have a lead here for the pulp yard that will be here. And right here, this track in the back will be an extension that will allow the locomotive, the local switcher, to pull a whole string of cars back here when it's trying to get down into other sections of the layout. Okay, so we got that one. Now we have to do the other part. So let's get over there. Okay, so right here is where the curve begins. And as I've shown you in the past, I created an easement using a spline. This is a piece of bamboo that I've had for years, and it creates an easement curve going into that 30-inch radius curve. So we start up here at this point, and it goes all the way around to where my left hand is here. And so what we'll be doing is we'll do the outer part of the curve first, like so, just like you would with standard cork road bed that comes split. So I'll lay that one, and then we'll come back and do the inner part of the curve. Makes it so much easier than trying to fit it around a curve otherwise. Okay, so let's lay our bead. Okay, and we'll put our cover back on it and start spreading it. Okay, one trick I do is just take and go like this. Oh, about every 6 inches or so that you can find the center line. Okay, very easy way to do that. Okay, so that's it. Now, we'll just make this guy up here, like so. And I'm going to pin him down just to make sure nothing moves. Okay, then from there, we're going to follow the center line of the track, like so. Okay, and let's get it. And now we can bring the inside of the curve. It's very important to get a good bond right here at a gap, because eventually I'm going to make a cut here and separate those. So that leaves that ready to set up. So at this point, you can see we've got a nice curve here. I've got a small piece that I need to cut to fit the rest of the way. Okay, we'll start here at this end and get a good covering of the adhesive on the foam. Start right here and come around like so. And I want to pin this down right away here and at this end. And now we'll put in, so that's firmly right there on that curve. And now we can put in this side. Okay, now I'm going to roll the free area like so. And we'll do some more pins. I went ahead and completed all of the foam road bed, so you can get a look at that. The extension, I think the lead to the pulp yard here in the foreground I made 24 inches long, and the lead in the back a full 36 inches. So this will just give you a quick look at everything now that it's been completed all the way around. So once all this adhesive sets up, we'll be able to install the track right over top of that. Now you'll notice right here there's a small gap, 1/4 inch or so wide, where the backdrop on the earlier module folded around. I'm going to go up to Lowe's in a few minutes and pick up a can of foam in a can and spray it in here and just let it fill in, set up, and then I'll just carve it down smooth so that the two modules meet and there's no gap between them. So we'll see how that's going to work. I think that'll work out fine. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let this sit for 24 hours. So we'll come back in 24 hours and we will install track here on the top of the foam roadbed. So as you can see, I picked up a can of the Great Stuff foam insulation, and I filled in the gap along here that was left over from the backdrop that I had that wrapped around. So let's go ahead. This is set up now. It's been almost 24 hours, so it's good and hard. So I'm just going to run my blade right down here, level with the edge of the module, and pop that off of there. Let me run it down this side as well. There we go. Okay, so a little sculpt-a-mold on that, and you'll never know there was a gap there at all. And then when it comes time to separate the layout, I can just do the same thing here. Run it right along here, and they'll just come apart when we get there. Okay, let me go ahead and do this one while I'm at it. So this might be something I'm going to use when we get around to doing the scenery work, because you can make great little hills. Just set them up on a piece of saran wrap or aluminum foil, let it expand out, and you've got an instant hill right there. Well, this video has started to get a bit long, so I've started playing with the rails and getting those ready to be laid in place. So I'm going to stop the video right now with where we are, and then in the next one we will go ahead, lay the rails down, solder them together, get it all ready to be finally installed, and then we'll move on from there. So this one we're going to wrap with laying the foam roadbed. The next video we'll lay the track, and then after that it'll be wiring time. So we can get this all wired up and connected to the DCC system, and we'll be able to test run a train from the Alexandra module onto the Tinbury module and see how it works. So have a great weekend and a great week, and I'll see you here with another video in a week or so. Bye now.